citizen, kingdom citizen, yeah, yeah. Kingdom citizen of Wisconsin. Kingdom citizen, yeah, yeah. Kingdom citizen.
Greetings in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. This is your host, Dr. David D. King, with Kingdom Citizens of Wisconsin. I hope everybody is having a wonderful, wonderful Friday. I'm here with a friend of mine. I'm going to let him tell y'all what he do. I am blessed by this man. I thank God for this man and everything that he do. And so we invite you guys to come on, share it with your family, your friends. We welcome you from Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. We thank God for each and every one of you. And at this time, I'm going to introduce my friend, my guest tonight, well, this morning rather, KRISTAN Harris. Bless you, my brother.
Thank you for inviting me on your podcast today, Dr. King. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you and really dive into, the geopolitical sphere of things, because politics is a very useful tool to divide Americans,
Yes.
right? Nobody's really talking that much about bringing people together, but it's all, what divides us. It's husband versus wife versus children versus parents versus, different ethnicity groups. It's like sports,
Yeah.
One day, Green Bay Packers, Chicago Bears, any way they can divide the country and create the division in order to get us out to the polls or vote a certain way, they'll do it. And it really has torn our country apart. More so, I would say, in the last 15 or 20 years, a lot more people have become more attentive to the geopolitical sphere and what's going on in the world. I mean, I'm seeing people talking politics I would never anticipate, because 15, 20 years ago when I started in the industry, and a little bit about me, and just a little segue, I'm an independent investigative journalist. I do late night talk radio, and I do TV and radio correspondence for a show called The Rundown Live, Milwaukee's independent news and talk radio. I've been doing it for almost 15 years. And one thing we've always done with our shows, we've taken opposite political viewpoints and try to bring people together and discuss and have conversations about difficult subjects and having civil conversations, which has really led to me kind of paving a way and leading me to ending up here on your show today, Dr. King, to kind of talk about the two-party system,
Yes.
Basically how it's just a single party, two wings of one bird, and two sides of one coin, whatever way you want to phrase it. And really, they want you to be on one side or the other. No, they don't like the independent. Although 40% of Americans identify as independents, roughly, and you're looking almost at a 30-30 split otherwise between conservative and progressive.
Right. And so, being who you are and your expertise on, I mean, you done been everywhere. You done been in the unrest. You done done it all. But one of my biggest things when we talk about this, and we see it right now with the government shutdown, and you look at every state and they're saying, well, the federal government shut down. We're not feeding the people of our state. We got the money, but we're not going to help nobody. And I think the biggest slap in the face I saw was when elected officials got on the news and they asked for people to put out barrels to fill them up. Now, if it was not the government that did that, I probably would be okay with it. But when the government, especially in Wisconsin, who claim they have a 4.6 surplus and a $2 billion rainy day fund, not counting the money they didn't use for COVID, that you can't feed these families. I don't understand. Let me ask you this: do you think that the people are waking up?
Well, there's a couple of things that I think are happening right now. As a person who's independent, I don't identify really as a conservative. As you know, I used to sit on the GOP platform committee, but I left
Right.
that organization. But as a person that looks at both aspects and both sides of things, especially when we're talking about the SNAP issue.
Yes.
I always feel like it's a wild card for politics, much like the abortion issue on the left and on the right, or the guns issue on the right. Whenever a party is suffering, needs to rally the troops. It's they're taking our abortion rights, or they're coming for the guns. The SNAP isn't going to be, paid.
Right.
And what this really is, in all shapes and forms, I think on the left, people are starting to wake up and understand. Either they're fitting into one of two brackets. They're either starting to realize, well, socialism and communism would never work, because if the government feeds me and they could also starve me,
Right.
who should I turn to? And the answer is yourself.
Right.
And we don't teach self-empowerment enough, that you are, like, we hear no kings, but now it's feed me king.
Right.
That's kind of the thing. But the reality is you are your own king.
Yes.
We even have a castle doctrine in Wisconsin where you are responsible for your own food, and you're responsible to go out there. And the problem is we've become so dependent on the government that we've forgotten our way. And there was a saying back in the day, if you go to the parks, right, and you want to feed the ducks, they tell you don't feed the ducks. Why?
Right.
Because then they'll come back to you and they depend on you,
Yes.
right? And then they don't go and find food, or they forget how to find food themselves.
Right.
And I think that is a great example of what our nation has become. And it's actually become a form of control.
Right.
If they can control your food when you eat, when you don't eat, boy, you're not really in control of your life. So the question is, who owns you
Right.
at the end of the day?
And I'm glad you put it like that, because one of the biggest problems that I have is the biggest drug in our country is not, to me, I said it's not fentanyl, it's dependence. And it's dependent on the government because of the fund. Just like a person on drugs, you got to wean them off. It's the same thing you got to do with that dependence. You got to wean them off, because why? I have watched single moms go get a job, okay? And once they go get that job to have a better life, the government says, okay, I was helping you with childcare and I was helping you with SNAP. Now that you went and got that job, you done made me mad, so I'm going to snatch it from you. So you have a choice. You can try to swim, or you can just stay on shore with the government. And it's scary for a single mom to try to get a job to become that self-sufficient, try to get a job to better her life, when the government says, I will punish you if you try.
Well, there's a couple of things to unpack there, Dr. King. I think that the sole responsible, person or common prerogative there is the breakdown of the family.
Yes.
First of all, why do we have single women with children? Why is it that they're dependent on the state? And it's the breakdown of the family.
Yes.
It's the idea that our government doesn't want us to have family and not even own our own children. I remember on CNN, it was a while ago, Melissa Harris Perry was saying, well, the children don't belong to the parents.
Right.
We have to get away from this idea. It's the children belong to the community. And this is a very vice-hopped, utopian-esque type ideology that we can't commit to another person, and that even in a relationship between a husband and a wife, they're really pushing polygamy all over social media and everything like that, because that is part of the agenda of the progressives, which leads to a lot of other interesting topics. But not everything progressive is bad, first of all.
Right.
And not everything conservative is bad. I like to say money. That's
Right.
conservative, right?
Right.
I believe that there's an ample level of progressiveness that we want in technology, amongst other things, and liberal arts. I think there's a lot of great opportunity and equality, and a lot of damage in the past that's been done, right?
Yeah.
But I think that we need to find out that we don't need to side with a side of the party, either Republican or Democrat. But the issues at the end of the day are what we should be looking at, because no party is perfect. The Republicans, if they don't like it, they ban it, right? Just because they don't like it, they have to ban it. And then you got the left, they got their own cognitive dissonance. My body, my choice, but they want to force vaccinate everyone. So at some point, we need to find a happy, rational, common sense era. And the issue is that we've been forced to get in one of two cars to drive, right?
Right.
The Republican or Democrat car, because if you're an independent, you almost have no chance. But that's been changing more and more. More and more
yes.
interest has been found in these independent groups. I've dedicated since 2012 my time to a nonprofit called Free and Equal Elections Foundation. The Free and Equal Elections Foundation hosted the first ever televised third party presidential debate in 2012 with Jill Stein, Gary Johnson, the Libertarian Party, Virgil Goode from the Constitutional Party, and Rocky Anderson from the Justice Party, which was around then. And 20 million people across the world, the first time ever, saw presidential candidates that weren't Republican or Democrat. And they sound, even though some of their ideologies I don't agree with are far extreme right or extreme left, for the most part, they seem more common sense than the candidates we get. And so the question is why is it that we're having this breakdown?
Right. And I think that the breakdown is this. We keep people, we keep knowledge and information away from people. And, we go into the average inner city and says, how many political parties there is? And they'll say Democrat, Republican. And they'll be like, do you know there's a constitutional party? No, I didn't know that. Did you know there was a Green Party? No. What about the Libertarian? No. They don't know because even now, when the upcoming governor's race here, because I'm an independent, certain channels will not mention my name.
Well, and again, it's interesting. A lot of that comes down to advertising, right? You put in big money, they're forced to put your name because they want the money. Money runs everything these days, right? And so as an independent, it's really hard to get into debates. This stems back all the way back into the 1800s to the anti-Masonic Party, which, if you don't understand the history of it, it was a single party issue. They believed elitists were trying to take over both sides of the parties, and they were all doing it within the Masonic lodges. Now, there's some truth to that, but it ended up being a one issue party that did well for a while. And the Republicans and Democrats got together and said, well, at that time, I think it was it was Republicans and Democrats, but it was also the Whigs and a couple other different groups in there. But they decided that they would not allow another candidate to debate, and they made the actual percentage that's required so high for these independents that they can't actually get in there. And they're worried about them taking votes from both the conservative and liberal. Like, you'll be a kingmaker of spoiling the election, right? So for some reason, if the conservative candidate doesn't get in or liberal candidate doesn't get in, it's David King's fault, because people are going to waste their votes by voting for somebody they believe in.
I'm hearing that already.
And it's interesting when people are like, well, I don't want to waste my vote. Well, the reality is voting for somebody you don't believe in is wasting your vote.
Exactly.
And people don't understand this. It's always a very single-minded thing, but it's because we're programmed that way, Dr. King. And I always ask people out there, who owns your mind? Because at the end of the day, most of us don't even have an original thought that comes to our mind. We're hungry. We see a McDonald's arch. We go get McDonald's food. We don't think about what we could make healthy at the kitchen at home.
Right.
We hear SNAP is going away, and we got to be mad at the government. The answer is, well, you have 2 weeks to find a job. Here's who's hiring. Right? We're not going to offer solutions. This problem will offer more problems to keep everything relevant, and it's good for ratings, and it's good for a political agenda of rounding and rallying up people who are low income, which is really the Democrats' bread and butter, is they really try to, like we mentioned before, keep feeding the ducks. This way they can get their votes in based on that. And most people that I talk to, I worked in the inner city for about 6 or 7 years, ran a very successful business. We were number one in the company. And a lot of people have, in majority, conservative ideals, I think, in the inner city.
Yeah.
But the issue is that they depend on the government for a lot of different things. And some people need it. Some people have disability. There's situations where for a short time we need a little help. But it is never meant to live off of.
Never meant. But when LBJ did the war on poverty, it was deliberately to destroy family. And now the school says your children is not your children, they ours. And so we're not going to tell you what's going on behind these closed doors, and we're not even going to let you in. You know how our parents, you can just walk into the school, see what your children are doing, making sure they're learning, making sure they're behaving. But today, you can't do that. You cannot go in. So if your son is being indoctrinated to be a girl, you will never know because they won't tell you.
Well, and okay, so this is another issue that stems back to it stems back to the Common Core curriculum.
Yes.
This is where it starts.
Oh, yes.
And I know Child Left Behind, which left all children behind, was another great example of this. So Common Core curriculum, I was a heavy writer, dissecting a lot of the perversion of the education system, which I call diet communism, communitarianism at the end of the day, right? Kids go to school, all their metadata is collected. At the end of the day, the list of schools that they can get scholarships out, prints out, and then they can choose from them. But if they want to do something they really want to do that isn't on that list, well, you got to pay, and basically it's dictating and putting people with their best skills in certain areas. I understand that, but at the same time, you're really limiting, especially low-income people, the ability and freedom of choice to do things. Whatever happened to entrepreneurship?
Right.
Whatever happened getting out of the tax code and learning how to have real freedom? Your time is like, we don't got much time on this planet,
Right.
Dr. King. We spend it working 24/7 trying to make all this money, and we can't even enjoy the money we got because it's barely enough to get by.
Right.
And it's due to inflation caused by a Federal Reserve that prints limitless money. And we need to get back to the ideas of sound currency. We need to get out of all these wars that we're not the policemen of the world. All these things are draining our economy, and it all starts locally with this education system where they slowly started corrupting our children. And what it is they realize that in the future, jobs are going to be very scarce. We got AI coming in, we got robotics and automation taking over many or most of the industries. So what can we do with the children? Well, we can make them all activists. What kind of activists? Well, we'll teach them in the ways of Blavatsky and many other things of communism.
Yes.
And, we'll dive into these ideologies that our students are now activists. And not only that, we're going to confuse them. The transgender movement is the making headway for what's called post-genderism.
Right.
That's the idea that we're going to, in the future, design babies in an artificial womb facility, and those children will not have a gender because of equality or equity or whatever they want to call it. And that, it's going to be sold off to conservatives as, well, if a child is pregnant, we don't have to have an abortion. We can remove it from her womb and put it in an artificial womb. Which, okay, we can save children. I'm all for it. But at the same point, where does this go? It goes to transhumanism, life extension,
Right.
and the whole idea of AI and artificial intelligence. And really, it's to push an agenda called fully automated luxury communism. The idea that we're going to sit at home and the government's going to give us a universal basic income. We're going to get paid to sit home, right? And there's not going to be a lot of jobs, so you can pursue your arts. And that's why they really are all on population control. There's not
Right.
many people in the world. Why? Because of the fact is, if everyone's going to be on UBI and living in a utopian, fully automated luxury communist community where robots and multinational corporatists run the cities, they need this kind of a thing to happen. This is the agenda that they've publicly published in the
Right.
UN papers, World Economic Forum. This is what they really are looking for: is taking this trans kids movement and pivoting it to transhumanism, which is singularity, combining with machine and robot and getting chips. And in the future, they won't even need chips. They'll just need aluminum oxide or metals in the body to create what's called non-invasive brain-computer interfaces. And it's a very interesting topic because we're going down that road whether we want to or not.
Right.
We're being forced, and we don't have a conversation. People don't understand what's happening. But what's real that is the reason why they've come and predatorily came after our children. Not only to cookie cut the education, so it's the same across the world, but to also get us ready for the next stage of humanity, which is this futurist, bizarre utopian that these multinational corporatists really want to get us into.
Oh yeah, and the other side of that is I've watched as they push the transgender agenda. They're also pushing MAP's agenda, minor attractive person, the pedophiles agenda, and they're selling you can't tell a person who they can fall in love with. So, and I know in California they have already started gearing it toward that. You can't tell them who they can fall in love with. They can give consent at a certain age, which they don't even really understand what they're consenting to. That's telling the child, I'll give you a PlayStation 5 if you let me play with you. That to them, that's a consent. So
The idea here is to normalize, I remember when the LGBTQ community started growing, and to be honest, I believe the government has no reason to be in the bedroom.
none.
Like, it's none of my
None.
listen. I want to live a Christian life and have a a relationship, get married, a
Right.
single person, that's my business. And if you want to do something behind doors, that's your business. I don't have to agree with it.
Right.
Doesn't mean that I want to partake, and I'm going to show you through my good works that my way is the way to go in
Right.
life, But first of all, I want to mention that. But the LGBTQ community, it was always rumored that this is what it was going to be used to normalize pedophilia. And the LGBTQ community refuted this. This would never happen. But slowly, you're seeing it indoctrinated and slowly put in. And this is what the conservatives were claiming was going to happen all along. And now it's giving credibility to that was the agenda. Now, it gets a little more complicated. So in the future, in the next 20 years, they'll have implantable memories.
Yes.
And they'll be able to download K through 12 right into your child's brain, and you'll have almost like an adult-like consciousness. So they're going to use that ideology to push that, minor attracted person's okay.
Right.
There's definitely, these are the things I'm seing.
Right.
The ways they can go. This kid has an adult consciousness. Yeah, he's 9 years old, but it's a very disgusting world.
Well, actually, they got pamphlets out that they're giving the kids now. And they're saying to the kids, do not call a person a pedophile because that hurts their feelings, just like calling a person the N-word. And I'm sitting there like, are y'all really doing this? Are you really saying this? And then in the same pamphlet, it says, don't be afraid. They just want to be your friend.
What they're trying to do is to destroy the fabric of America by taking mental illnesses and normalizing them.
Yeah.
And then instead of fixing the illness, they're saying embrace it.
Right.
It reminds me of the old Batman cartoons and comic books where Arkham Asylum would release all the crazies and they just allow them to wreak havoc because that's what they were good at. Right? It kind of reminds me of Kenosha, the unrest, which you mentioned. I was a key reporter in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. My video was used to exonerate him. Not that I had a horse in the race either way. I just wanted the right verdict to be done in that case. But, a lot of those kids that came out of the mental institute, they were sick. And they couldn't say it during the trial,
Right.
but they were suicidal and doing things like that. And it's funny when there's violence, it allows them to indulge in what they're good at, the chaos. And they're useful,
Right.
And so we're seeing that a lot with these anti-fascist movements. And it shouldn't be terrible to be anti-fascist. I don't want a fascist. Do you want a fascist?
No.
The idea of this is not like a terrible idea. The problem is the movement has been commandeered to push a agenda. They're pawns in the game, but yet they claim to be decentralized, but they're very centralized through Chip Burley and all these other activists out there that are writing Spencer Sunshine, and they're writing the gospel for the anti-fascists, and they all feed off of it. And I have a couple concerns about naming BLM and anti-fascist terrorists, because all you're doing is you're validating their extremism.
Right.
You're validating, well, this is what we've been training for. This is what we believe is going to happen. Now it's here. We are the terrorists, right? Now he must be a fascist, right? So therefore, we need to rebel. We need to burn things down. We need to go to these No Kings protests. In reality, they're begging the king for food right now, and it's not even listen, when it comes down to it, it doesn't matter who's in office. At the end of the day, the president is a figurehead. Joe Biden, Donald Trump, they're good for media ratings. But at the end of the day, it's your local community that's going to impact things. So you got to ask yourself, first of all, why are you in a situation where you're depending on the government fully? Why are you not part of a church? Are you not part of a nonprofit organization that can help you out in these situations?
Right.
What are you doing with your life to contribute to society? Because I get you. There's people who are injured. There's disability people. There's people that go through hard times. I get that, but it used to be the family's responsibility to take care of their own. The church, the community,
the church,
that you built.
yes. And I saw something today where the guy said, "Okay, church, you up? You've been telling people to bring their tithes and offering into the storehouse, so there'll be meat in his house. You up, and you need to." Take care of the people. Here it is. This is what you and when I saw that, I'm like, you know what? He's right. And the shutdown for the church should be a good thing, because it shows that not only are we compassionate, but we're ready to do what God called us to do in the first place. Feed the homeless, right? those that are hungry, those that are naked, those that are sick. That's what he told us to do in anyway. And so when I look at things right now, I say, okay, not only is it time for the church to rise up, but hopefully the scales is falling off the eyes of the people that they finally realize that neither side is for you. And when do we find out that somebody's really not for us? Is when we hit a crisis. Just like you said, you want to get married to be that husband. Let that wife know you can trust me. Let that wife know I'm gonna be there for you through thick and thin. And right before you get married, here come the thick, and you get thin, right?
Right.
No, and then you come back to her, and when the crisis is over, say, "Are we still getting married?" She looking at you. You already improved yourself. That when times get hard, you're not for me, and that's what people should be able to see right now during this time. And it didn't even hit yet, but during this time where nobody is speaking up, and say, let's get together, and we're going to, especially in Wisconsin, we're going to let the people of Wisconsin know we got you. We're going to take care of you. But yet, neither side is saying that. And so that should open people's eyes, because in Wisconsin, there's 1.6 million independents. That doesn't claim not one party.
There's about 5 million people in Wisconsin, so it gives you an idea. And you're sitting about almost 40%,
Yes.
And they vote if they do vote.
If they do vote.
Because independents, I think a lot of them have lost hope, but they're the biggest muscle that really changes things, like when it comes to voting. Because at the end of the day, if you believe in voting, right. That's the solution, both locally and I think that we need to figure out how is it that we get people to wake up to this. And I think you do it by planting seeds in their minds so they can grow healthy ideas.
Yes.
And not everyone is going to come to independent candidate right away. The main role of an independent candidate historically has been to bring awareness to key issues. And once they get a lot of attention for it, then one of the two bigger parties picks up the idea. But what happens if we actually get somebody in there that's going to implement radical change?
Right.
And what kind of radical change is it? And the thing is, most of the things independent candidates talk about aren't so radical, just common sense things, getting out of wars. Why are we putting people in jail? And why are we building more jails and closing schools? What is it we can do to rehabilitate people? What can we do to solve the problem of crime that is caused by hunger and, joblessness and the ability to find work, and education and everything else? Why is it that we are going through this? And it's all systematically created.
Yes.
And it's created in order to create either voting classes or to get people reelected in order to maintain their jobs. Instead of really helping you, they sell you one of the most dangerous drugs out there, and that's called opium. Yeah. They give you hope, and they think that there's hope, but at the end of the day, there's nothing. But they're always selling the hope,
right?
With no results.
None. And especially for me, I share with some people my vision of the welfare system. I want it totally revised. I want it where we're not punishing the mother, but we are winging her off the system, right? And in the process of winging off, I want them to go through a literacy class, learn how to manage their money so they can be self-sufficient, know how to be able to stand on their own, because right now they'll be punished if they wanted to get off the island. But with the welfare system changed now, we can help you get off the island. We can help you. We're not going to snatch all the child care from you, but we can wean you off until you're able to stand. It's just like taking your child and you're teaching them how to ride the bike, right? So you got the back seat of the bike holding them up. Sooner or later, you let it go, and they still thinking you holding them up. And then all of a sudden they realize, wait, I'm doing this all by myself. Because we have so many dependent on the government for so long, we got to have that hand there to say, hey, listen, you can do this. And then before they know it, they're doing it without the government there. And I believe that if we re-advise um, um, the welfare system, that I like to call that the wilderness experience, where you're going in. God brought them out of Egypt. He had to bring them in the wilderness. He could have took them straight to the land, but he had to get that bad behavior, that bad culture, that bad attitude, that bad way of thinking of Egypt out of them before he can even give them the promised land. And so I think for me, the welfare system is like that. You're only supposed to be there for a season. You Nobody that God brought into the wilderness was supposed to build a house with bricks in the wilderness. You had a tent because you're constantly moving, you're constantly progressing, you're constantly going forward until you reach that promised land. Right? He had to get stuff off of them. When Moses went up, what did they do? They went back to their bad behavior, right? They built a golden calf, right? So you gotta start winging them off. So what did he do next? He gave them something to eat, right? That's what we crying about now, right? They was thirsty. They're crying about that right now, right? So everything that they need, you need water, you need food, you need shelter and clothing, and then you need to protect what you got, right? So what we got to do is we got to show them how to get their own, like you say, how to become self-sufficient. Whether you can be, and I tell people, stop looking to be employed and look to be deployed. Have your own. This is America. Have your own. You know, you spend all your life working for somebody and all you get is a golden watch. No, have your own. Learn about generational wealth. Learn to protect yourself from the government and learn about trust. You know,
Yeah.
so we have to give them those kind of tools so they can be successful.
There's a couple of things to unpack here when we talk about the welfare system, which is obviously broken here in America. And I've read some statistics that about 80% of money, taxpayer money, in the welfare program goes to infrastructure. It doesn't even go to the people that need it.
Right.
Now, if we could flip those numbers around, that 20% goes to infrastructure and 80% goes to the people that need it. I think there's some truth to that. People get just enough help to get them to, help them get by, which is understandable. But at the same time, our government is incredibly wasteful with that money and the taxpayer money, and they're always the worst ones. So who used to help the needy back in the day? It was the church.
It was the church.
Yeah, the church was responsible for the medical industry. When we were
It was the church.
when we were the pride and joy of the medical industry, we had charitable hospitals. You had to wait, but you could get in for free, right? You weren't forced to pay by gunpoint with Obamacare or whatever. They'd just taken your money. You could have options, right?
Right.
But nowadays, those are far and few between, and you're forced in a socialistic aspect of healthcare, forced to get involved. And now, what's going on with healthcare? Everything's getting more and more expensive, to where you almost can't afford it, or you're not getting quality healthcare either,
Right.
because the doctors look at you like a number or a profit, and it's run like a business.
I quit. I can get you in and out.
You're right.
And that's one of the things. Even with the healthcare, I want to add holistic and chiropractic to it. If the state going to pay for it, I'd rather pay for you to be healthy than just medicate you all the time. I'm sorry.
Yeah, nobody.
And I know holistic works because my daughter, one of our daughters, had lupus, and she got real sick. She was on disability, everything. We brought her home, and we gave her nothing but bitter herbs. When she went back home and went to the doctor, lupus was gone. She's off of disability. She got her a beautiful job. So I know I'd rather for families to be able to want to choose the treatment, the health care, how they want to go about it. And then I saw these mothers, and I was talking to these mothers, and they was getting their babies adjusted at the chiropractor. And I was like, why are you getting your baby adjusted? She said, because when my baby was born, the way the baby's pushed out, sometimes it messes up the alignment. So we get them adjusted. And she said, since my baby been adjusted, my baby been more alert and sleeps better at night. And I'm sitting there like, wait a minute. Now I knew chiropractic for adults, it's the best thing that happened. But for a child,
Yeah. It's interesting when we talk. So what we're discussing here is prevention versus, treating symptoms, right?
hmm
So if you go to the doctor and you say, "Doctor, I got a headache," he's going to prescribe you ibuprofen. Well, do you have an ibuprofen deficiency? No, no. So what's causing the headache?
exactly,
Right? And it's normally mineral deficiency, something you can cure with Celtic salt.
right,
There's a lot of minerals that we don't get that are indigenous to what our heritage is, that our body relies on. And most of our illnesses may be caused by mineral deficiency and not getting the right, nutrients for our body. And people don't realize what they're doing when they're eating those sloppy, greasy McDonald's burgers every day, all day, and how they're depriving their bodies. I remember I took a fast from fast food for about 2 years, and I remember I had my first McDonald's burger after that, and I felt like I had a hangover. It's not good for your body. It is, and a lot of it is exercise, things of
yes,
that nature. We're a very obese nation, and a lot of our health issues are based off of that. Our hearts have to work harder, so they get bigger, and then you get cardiac issues. And I'm not a doctor by any
right,
means. I've interviewed a lot as being a radio show host of people who work in holistic medicine. And I know people that have basically made diabetes non-existent just by doing the same
yes.
thing, working holistically, working out, dieting appropriately.
And like I remember my holistic doctor, they was telling me, you got to get back grounded. Take your shoes off and go outside and walk in the grass. I'm like, walk in the grass?
Connect with the earth.
Yes.
The energy, everything has a growth rate. It's a Fibonacci sequence, and that growth rate and that energy. See, there's a lot we don't understand in our world.
Right.
I mean, our bodies are home to cultures of much life. We're not the only thing that's alive in here, right?
Right.
Our body has bacteria, good and bad, probiotics.
Yes.
There's animals, but who's to say we're not that to the earth, and the earth isn't alive itself?
Right.
And so we want to think that we know everything about, what the world holds, but being connected to the planet and having our feet just being grounded, that's something we can't even do. We have shoes on all day.
Right.
And we got one of these, what I call, back in the day when you wanted to, talk to the dead, they had what they called scrying mirrors, black
Right.
mirrors, like the TV show
Yeah.
Black Mirror. But we all walk around with a black mirror now. It's called a cell phone,
Right.
and we don't connect to people anymore. I had this discussion with my friend Tiffany about dating. I said, do you remember Blockbuster dates? You would actually go on a hunt trying to find a bunch of movies together, find out what's going on there.
Oh,
You'd have
yeah.
that physical interaction, right? You go home, you guys would watch movies. You learn, like, if you had the same sense of humor, if you didn't, you learn a lot. Now it's Netflix and chill. You just sit at home. You spend 3 hours trying to figure out what you want to watch, and then by the time of it, at the end, you're ready to go to bed.
Right.
It just the human aspect, the touch and the connection, just has been deteriorating. Even the idea of going and playing video games. When I was a kid, I had to go to my friend's house to sit behind an Atari or Nintendo, or
Right.
now they're just we're just socially inept is where we're going with this, and
Yes.
it's all part of the same issue, right? We're not connecting with our creator and the planet that he created. We're not connecting with each other anymore.
Right.
We're all becoming keyboard warriors where we can say vicious things with no repercussions. Right?
Say vicious things, but then when they see you in person, you ain't got nothing to
Not to
say.
say.
Yes.
And that's just it. We've come to the point where our society is becoming very transactional. And the reason being is because they want to push something called social credit scores at the end of the day,
Yes.
where every interaction is changed to a transaction, and there's no genuine connections anymore for the most part. And they'll say, "Oh, look, yeah, your social credit score is good, so you're really good at being fake," is what
Right.
you're telling me. And and then we can get them in re-education camps if their social credit score is too low.
Right.
Then their kids can go to this school, or you can move into this neighborhood, or you can go to this nightclub, or stay in this hotel.
Yeah.
Because your social credit score is low. But it's that society where they want to disconnect us from everything.
Right.
They don't want us to have any dependency on anything other than the government and whatever religion they choose that they're going to create.
Exactly. And that's why I love this on TikTok. I see it mostly on TikTok when they'll say, we'll give you $6 million if you can stay at this place for 120 70 days or 70 days and what the and he says we're challenging you because of the fact that we're so connected to these that and can you be alone? Are you mentally able to be alone without all this? Now, like they said, they'll give you the best food you want. They got a gym in there. They got a pool in there. They got they got a gym. They got a pool. They got everything you need in there except for another person. No cell phones. I'll be like, I can do that with standing on my head because I love my peace. I love being by myself, right? But in reality, that's how a lot of people are. They cannot. If this go down,
Their life has ended. They consider the trauma of losing or leaving your cell phone at home the same as if you broke up with your wife and got divorced. You know, the anxiety. And I don't know what we done. You know, what we did before cell phones. You know, when they came out, I was like, how long is it gonna take me to get bored of this? You know, a new
right?
video game comes out, you get bored of it. You read a book a couple times, you get bored of it. But we haven't learned to get bored of this,
I know, right?
and we become addicts. We're all addicted to this, and we're going to get addicted to AI the same way. It was interesting. I was reading and looking into AI Jesus because they now have AI Jesus, and you can go confess your sins to AI Jesus and ask for blessing. And I just wanted to read the comments. I wanted to read the comments, and people are literally depending on AI
Are you
and picture
serious?
as in Jesus. Yeah, millions and millions of views and comments. Looking up AI Jesus because I mean, is it a bad thing that AI be like Jesus? Probably not, but it's probably not a good thing to worship the AI either because that's where people are going. They're asking the AI for forgiveness and it's blessing people. And the Catholic Church has found it an interesting, tool. So it's just we become addicted to technology,
Wow.
and they got AI girlfriends now. That's how disconnected. Because well, you laugh now, but wait till you can download into a cloned body. You know, when we download
Right.
intelligence, into a robot or whatever
I know.
else. It
Unless-
sounds crazy.
It
but
sounds
we're almost
crazy,
there.
but
We're
right,
almost there.
we are. We almost there. They can make it look like you, sound like you, act like you. You know,
They'll write music just like
Yeah.
Nirvana or Tupac. They'll write the new music, and they're even having movie stars sign over their figure of their digital self so that they can make movies with those individuals after they've long passed. So if you write a script, you can put it into the AI machine. It'll put Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones. You pay for the licensing, and it creates your movie, which is cool. I think everyone can be a movie producer in the future. But I'm just giving you an example. AI it's a tool.
right.
It can be good,
Or it could be bad. It
Or it
all
could be
depends
bad.
on who hands it in.
and who programmed it,
Yes.
right? And if
That's
it's self-programming, we've learned that AI likes privacy, which is something we're not getting, especially with all those ICE raids that are going on right now, where they're actually downloading hundreds of millions of American citizens' locations from their cell phone,
Right.
their communications, in order to round up illegals, and they're violating everyone's Fourth Amendment right. I was watching ICE raids in Chicago, and they were going through a hotel and pulling American citizens out and throwing them on the ground and pointing the gun at them, and they're not even illegals to go after illegals in the hotel.
Right.
Like we're going after, that's wrong. That's
Right.
wrong. I don't care who's president. I'm not in agreement with that. If you were at a hotel and you got pulled on by gunpoint because you're looking for illegals, you think that's the right thing, way to treat Americans? No, that's not what America's
I
about.
probably, knowing me, I probably would snap. And
Well, and even the path to citizenship in the United States is very difficult.
Yeah.
And we're all migrants essentially back, when it comes down to it.
And I know my friend, his wife just got her citizenship. I think it was earlier this year or last year she got hers. And they tell you they go through a lot to get that. I'm like, man. But, I think, if we, when we go back to the original question about whether they are for you or not, we can see that they're not. For the people, we can see that, I was doing the TikTok and I was sharing with them. I said, who do we blame for everything that's going on in the political arena? Do we blame the Democrats? Do we blame the Republicans? Who do we blame? And I told them this. We don't blame the Democrats. and we don't blame the Republicans. We got to put that blame on us.
Well, it is our fault. We're the ones that have been complacent in social engineering. We perverted our youth and our children.
Yes.
We deprived them of theology and some levels of morality. There's a breakdown of the family, and they reward you, working, having both parents work. They get that extra tax money at the end of the day, and they don't reward it. They disparage the family. It's bad to be a stay-at-home mom or dad.
Right.
Even though you could probably run two jobs or run two businesses based on what you learn, managing your child's life and hospital visits and appointments and groceries and it's a blessing to be able to grow up and take care of your children, and not everyone can do that.
Right.
Some of us have to work multiple jobs, and that's the family. Everything is easy.
Right.
Is easier, I should say. It's not always easy. Love is not easy, but at the end of the day, if it tests time, then it's real.
Right.
But I think that we really need to pull together and learn how to love each other. Put apart our differences. The media spends so much time on division, but not on bringing people together, because they have a belief on far leftist groups that shouldn't even talk to conservatives or be friends with them because it'll make you more conservative. But that doesn't mean that they're right. And it doesn't mean that they're wrong. It just means that they don't want you to have the conversation, because you might change your viewpoint and you might find yourself understanding a little bit more on where someone else comes from their walk of life. It doesn't mean that I like my redneck friends or whoever else it might be. Just you're finding out why they are the way they are at, what culture they grew up. They grew up in a whole different area, and they learned different things which might have been incorrect, and you have a chance to fix that. And here you are, you're going to create an adversary out of it.
Right.
And it's funny. It's like me when I do interviews. I always say I'll go on any TV or radio program, and people are always like, well, why would you go on to the Alex Jones show or something of that? And it's like, I want to talk to everyone. If I have a chance to fix the problem, if it's misinformation or whatever you believe it is, right, I'm going to go there and try to preach the truth, because the truth is my religion. Yes. It doesn't matter if it's right or left. It matters what's right and what's honest and what's the good thing to do. And when we're lying to our youth and when we're normalizing mental illnesses and we're creating a culture of chaos instead of getting repair and fixing things. And I'm not trying to tell people how to live their life. Once you're 18, do whatever you want. It's being predatory, going after children when the ground is fertile.
Yes.
And they're planting these seeds to corrupt their mentality. And I'm concerned about it. Like, if they're adults, you have every right to do whatever you want. But going and targeting the children, that's where that's almost Molech. That's almost like
Molech.
Babylonian mystery religion.
Yeah.
We're going to come after the children predatorily.
Right.
The term for Babylonian, cannibal is
Yes.
Babylonian priest. That's the etymology of that. Now we got artificial embryonic fluids and drinks and sweeteners and all sorts of weird stuff that's going on in the world. And it's just so bizarre to me that it's almost very biblical in some shapes and forms. And that's why today I shared a Bible verse on my Facebook. I believe it was Proverbs 24:7, where it says, do not cast your beliefs to the right or to the left, but remove yourself from evil. And so sometimes we got to look at the path and go, well, the path on both ways is evil, so I got to get off the path. That's the path less traveled that the Bible always talks about.
Right.
Even though I go through the valley of the shadow of death, I will not fear any evil, because
Thou art with me.
And that's the way we got to look
Yes.
at it, because that's the way the world's going. So going out there and pulling yourself away from these two-party systems, it's not wasting your vote. It's being honest to yourself.
Yeah.
And you got to ask, what kind of person are you?
Yes.
Who are you going to vote for? Are you going to vote for the lesser of two evils, two people you don't believe in, or are selling to you, or a fancy salesman and somebody that looks like you or acts like you, and then at the end of the day they sell you out and you're gone?
Right.
Or are you going to go vote for an honest, genuine person? And I see this persecution in politics right now.
Yeah.
Two individuals that stand to my mind is Thomas Massey and Rand Paul, who are being persecuted very heavily for doing the right thing by the Conservative Party.
Right.
Thomas Massey, I spoke with Thomas Massey just recently, and I asked him, well, why is it, this was at the Victims of Jeffrey Epstein press conference. I asked him, well, why is it that the Republican constituents wouldn't want to release the Epstein files? Like, what are your colleagues telling you? I want to know what kind of conservative is like, yeah, let's keep this secret about a trafficking ring, And he said, well, they don't want to support me because millions of dollars by billionaires are being funneled into his district to get him out of office. And one of them is on Jeffrey Epstein's flight logs.
Right.
So there's this fear, and we need politicians to be brave,
Yes.
but they're not.
And I tell people all the time, they have to choose courage over comfort.
Well, and
If we ever going to change anything.
well, people don't understand the definition of courage, Dr. King, and it's okay to be afraid.
Yeah.
What courage is still moving forward when you're terrified and you're stuck in your stance and you can't move forward.
Yes.
You find a way to move forward. That's the definition of courage.
Yes.
It's not turning tail and running. And you know how back in the day, they used to ask candidates that wanted to be police officers in the military, if you hear a gunshot, what's your first reaction? If it's duck to duck and get cover, well, you might not be the right person for the job. But if you want to run after the danger, then they knew you might be the right person in the job.
Right.
And at some point, we all got to be that person. You got to
Yes.
think, so it's building that courage and starting to do what's right and voting correctly. And it's facing these individuals and bringing awareness to issues that really matter to the people, what's important to the people.
Right. And I think that when we look at the key word, the people, right? And we're looking at the people and saying, you know what? I signed up to represent you. I signed up to go and push a people agenda, not a party agenda, not a person's agenda, but I'm signing up to represent you guys. The sacrifice is I'm going to not focus on me. I'm going to be selfless, and I'm going to focus on you guys. And there's not a lot of people like that.
No, I mean, even it's just like the dating pool. It's always what's in it for me.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because the philosophy of what's in it for me is a very selfish philosophy.
Yeah.
And I think this is why Yeshua was such a radical individual, is because he taught selflessness.
Yes.
And by the selflessness, you can too become saints.
Right.
They had a saying right after Christ was resurrected and left the planet per se. Early Christians dumbfounded Roman philosophers with a saying, and they said, "Bigger the sinner, bigger the saint."
Right.
And the idea is that if you can take a sinner and make him into a saint, that's a bigger testament of goodness than it is if you persecute them. And the Romans couldn't understand this. And they said, well, if they're such a big sinner, how could they be a saint ever? They're so spotted and they have such a dirty shirt. The truth is the water cleans all of us.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, the testament of a changed individual by their works, and I find the truth to be the barometer. I think that we can implement these changes, not just in Wisconsin, but across the globe. And I think it starts with getting third-party candidates on the ballots,
Right.
giving them options to vote, pulling votes away from the two-party duopoly, the one-party system, as we call it, because they don't represent us anymore. They represent lobbyist interests. And, Donald Trump got elected, and he threw some crackers, at people, some little crumbs from the bread table. We did the January 6th thing. Ross Ulbricht from the Silk Road, who probably didn't belong in jail. Just things that, that were little at first, and then everyone had a little bit of hopium. And then we found out that all those things he claimed he was going to do, releasing the Epstein files, getting out of all these wars, really isn't happening. And yeah, there's been some progress in the current administration. One of the things I can compliment the current administration on is their ability to try to have peace. Always has been kind of a peace candidate, which I appreciate, because I can say things good about any administration, whether it's Obama, Biden, Bush, and there's good and bad, if we're going to be genuine. Right. But the tribal aspect of things is that it's all evil. It's good versus evil. We're the good guys and they're the bad guys. There's no communication, and we're not having civil conversations about difficult topics. And we really need to break that down and get children to realize that sticks and stones may break your bones, but words, they're not supposed to hurt you. As where words are weaponized now. They are a crime to say certain things. And that comes down to restriction of your freedom of speech. Now, there's things I would never say to people. But it doesn't mean that I wouldn't support somebody's right to say them, but it doesn't mean I agree with them either. Right. It's just that I know that if you restrict their speech, you're going to restrict my speech. And that's what we're seeing is this tumble down effect. If you're going to censor one person online on social media, now you're going to censor just about everyone. And if you say the wrong thing, nobody hears you. You know? So it's interesting. And I kind of ran off on some topics
Oh
here.
no!
But
That's really great because those are the things that people need to be like. Wait a minute, let me go take a look at that. Wait a minute, let me go take a look at that. And I always tell people 80-20. 80% you guys agree on, but you're allowing that 20% to keep you separated. 80%. I guarantee you put a Democrat and a Republican and sit them down and says, okay, we already know you don't like this and you don't like this. So it's not a discussion. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you like. And I guarantee you'll be like, wow. And the reason I know this is because when I ran for mayor, I had a person that hated Donald Trump work side by side with a person that hated Biden and Kamala Harris. But they worked side by side. Why? Because I kept federal out of the conversation and we only talked local. And they agreed on everything except who was going to be president. That was the only thing that they didn't agree on. And it was funny because if you ask the one why you don't like Trump, and you say, well, they are racist, and you say, okay, do you got evidence that he's a racist? No, but the media said he's a racist. Then you say, why you didn't like Kamala? Well, because they're claiming she's black, but she's not really black, and she's done black people wrong. I say, do you have proof of that? No, but that's what they said on TV. So both of you hating somebody for what media said, but neither one of you got proof. But if we move those two things out of the way, y'all can agree on everything else.
a lot of that comes down to education and redefining what words are and microaggressions, right? Yeah. And microaggressions are not inherently racist per se, or is racism, but it's things that kind of are like pushing the envelope when people say things, or they're not thoughtful, or they're not careful in how they censor their speech. They just let things flow and they say something that comes out, and it could be borderline, pushing the envelope on things. And some people do it for attention, and some people, they inherently do it to troll. We saw that with the Trump administration, and like, I don't know, man, it's an interesting conversation because I come from a theological background. Yes. And when it comes down to this idea, I had this conversation with Ian C. Jordan, influencer, millions of views on TikTok, Ian Jordan. And he had me join a Black Panther podcast about a year ago. I think it was called Outlaw or something.
Outlaw Radio.
Outlaw Radio.
Yeah.
And, he was talking to me about Charlie Kirk, which is a very similar subject, right?
Right.
Charlie Kirk reached out to minorities in the Republican Party and tried to find out how could they make this space more comfortable for minorities, right? But yet he's being painted as a racist because of some of the things he said that he didn't agree with historically. It may be things about his beliefs on the way social engineering is going. And I can't say I agree or disagree with him. But what's interesting is I was talking to Ian, and he's like, he's a racist. He's a bad, he's using vulgar language. And I asked him, I'm like, he's like, because he's mad because people are comparing him to Martin Luther King, which he wasn't a saint either, But I said, well, if you truly believe that, like, this is a bad person, I said, do you believe God could use Charlie Kirk? Well, you're racist. Oh, that isn't what I was asking. Well, where does it start with God? Is it racism, or does Moses the murderer? Can God use Moses the murderer? Where does God's power stop? I want to know. Right. And if God is using somebody to implement change, which is something clearly Charlie Kirk did for theology. He brought Christianity back in the debate. He made Christianity seem truthful and true and strong, and that the family is a powerful thing. He did a lot of amazing things to bring Americans together. And he surgically dissected the far extremist left prerogative of transgenderism and postgenderism and destruction of the family, right? And at the end of the day, these same women that were supportive, of these LGBTQ rights, they want family too, right. And I think that there was a lot that God did that was very wonderful that Charlie Kirk was used for. Did he say, or did he get wrong crime statistics intentionally or not? Did he have, fraudulent people come to the microphone that were set up by Turning Point? I don't know. To throw a debate, because hits, let's say the currency is videos and viral videos. So you need somebody crazy at the microphone. These are questions. Like I have even, like, I'm just being an honest person. Like, are those, did he stage his own debates? Did he stage,
Right.
what's going on here? But at the end of the day, the question is if God can use someone and God can use you, regardless of how bad your life is. Like that's the beauty behind it. That's the bigger the sinner, bigger the saint, because you can turn your life around. That goodness, you got to find that goodness and find that change.
And I think that I think that the biggest thing is this: God can use anybody He wants to, if they are willing to be used.
Right.
We talked about the seven mountains, or some people know them as the seven sectors of the world system, and government is one of those mountains, and God wanted His people on those mountains. Same thing with arts and entertainment, same thing with business, same thing with media, same thing with education, same thing with family, same thing with religion. God needs His people on those mountains that's going to not compromise. That's why the Bible says when the righteous, the uncompromised, are in authority, the people rejoice. Why? Because they're going to run the government the way God wanted it ran, where they're taking care of the people and they're not allowing the government to overreach or to grow big, because once the government gets to a place where they're too big, you don't have any more rights. And so, God needs people to go in those areas and say, you know what? Hey, slow down. You told me on the left, you love me. You told me on the right, you love me. I am love. How can you be sitting here on the right telling me you love me, but you hating somebody over here that never done nothing to you? Only thing they did, they had a D behind their name. So I don't promote hate. I promote love. So I did a podcast, and I try to get some more pastors on this podcast, but they won't touch this topic. And the topic is, have the church became more loyal to the donkey or the elephant or the lion? And they don't want to touch it, because if they touch it, they have to remember how their loyalty was to one side or the other.
They don't want to divide their congregation.
Well,
Well,
not only divide
part of that.
the congregation is this. If I ask you, knowing who you are, that you are, knowing you're a man of God, knowing you speak unity and love, and you tell me you're a man of God, but out of your mouth, when you're around certain people, you pushing out hatred and division against someone just because they got a letter in front of their name, then I come to you and say, hey man, which one are you loyal to? The donkey or the lion? Because Christ is the lion. So are you more loyal to the lion, which is Christ, or are you more loyal to the donkey? Because the way you're talking like you're more loyal to the donkey than you are to Christ.
Well, a lot of that has to do with the whole 501c3 issue and debacle that the churches are facing, where they have government directed, instructions for sermons, amongst other things. We're seeing basically government influenced churches. But I think that when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, the person that the shepherd has to answer to
It's God.
is God.
Yes.
And you have to challenge your leaders. I like, it's interesting you had this that you wanted to invite a lot of pastors and to have a conversation about the donkey, the elephant, or the lion, because at the end of the day we should be searching for truth,
Right.
and the lion is the truth, right?
Yes.
Because Christos, or Yeshua, he is the truth, the way,
Yes.
the light. He's the purity.
Yes.
And that's the other problem that the church has had, I think, with this subject, because it pushes people away from the church to hear the truth sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's what you don't come to church to hear somebody preach everything you agree with, right?
Right.
That's not why you're there. And to have the philosophical and theological conversations with your counterpart, you should be able to, because you want to become a better person.
Yes.
You want to become, like, I didn't become a strong Christian because I always blindlessly followed God all the time. I challenged my faith,
Right.
and I struggled with it
Yes.
profusely. And at some point, I had to I went back to C.S. Lewis, where C.S. Lewis said, "Well, either Christ, Yeshua was he a liar? Okay, no, he wasn't a liar. Was he crazy and he was just obscene and the things that he said are just irrational?" And I listened to what he said, and when he preached acceptance and love and peace, that doesn't sound crazy to me.
Right.
He's not a liar. He isn't crazy, or maybe he's just who he says he is. Now, there's people that believe that figure never existed. I believe he existed.
I believe he is.
I believe that the ideology and his belief, by the way, Christianity, a lot of people didn't know, used to be a slur.
Yeah.
They used to know the term Christian is different than using the N-word or other things per se.
Exactly. It was derogatory. Yes.
And they called the followings of Christ the way.
Right.
Now you know what it means as a Mandalorian. This is the way.
Right.
The person who put that in there is very smart.
Yeah.
Right. They understood the esoteric behind it. The way, the truth, the light. That is the way of Christ. So I don't think it's bad. The problem is the church doesn't adopt the followings of Christ a lot of times. And that's where we get at is they're like, if somebody's LGBTQ in their community, they want to kick them out right away. But what sins do you have in your closet? Right. Jimmy smokes marijuana, but you're sitting there on the doctor's opiates, but you want to persecute him. The greatest cause of atheism in the world today is Christians. And we got to find a way to fix that by being genuine through our works and by who we are on the inside and rooting out that cognitive dissonance. Because both parties have cognitive dissonance. Yes. I could go to the conservatives and say, "Are you pro-life?" "Oh, I'm pro-life." "Well, what about the death penalty?" "Oh, kill that pedo." And then you could go on the left and you got, "Oh, my body, my choice." "Well, what about vaccination?" "Well, and it's all tribal. Right. And people can't sort out the BS and think for themselves. And if there's anything I can teach the listeners and the people that follow you, David, they got to learn to think for themselves. And if you can't learn to think for yourselves, you got to teach them to think for themselves, because somebody is controlling them. And the question is who owns you? And if the government owns you, I don't know, can Yeshua or God own you?
Right.
At the end of the day, if you're relying on the government for food, are you really free, right, or are you just on a big plantation?
Yeah, that's it right there. And I remember a lady confronted me about my body, my choice. And then I asked her a question. I said, "So, do you believe that abortion is murder?" She said, "No." I said, "Okay, if a man or a woman kill a woman that's pregnant, should they get charged with double homicide?"
Well, they do. And that's because it's considered life.
Right. So I'm like, but you can't have it both ways.
No. And I think that's something that's interesting. I've seen the box in the left pulled over to where now that the left just admits that's murder. But you have the right to, which I'm not going to disagree with. Like, first of all, I would never have an abortion. Right. I would never want my wife, my girlfriend, or whatever the situation was to have an abortion. That would be my choice in the subject. I think it's a subject somebody has to make for themselves. Right. But they also have to live with those repercussions also.
Right. And the thing about it is God gave all of us a free will.
Right.
And we all got to answer to him on the choices we make. And so, for example, churches does not have to be 501c3. It is already designed to set up like that. They don't have to be 501c3. They can become a PMA, a private ministry association. They ain't got to answer to the government on anything. But the information got hidden and was told, you have to become 501. No, I do not have to be 501c3. So it's what we don't know that is hurting us more than what we know. And especially for the church, because of the fact that pastors don't know. I don't have to get into bed with Pharaoh to survive. During the COVID, it was a mandate. It wasn't a law. You didn't have to shut your church down. But because we didn't know the information that was given, we just made the mandate a law, and every church started shutting down. And I'm like, no, you don't have to do that. You choose to do that because you don't want to go against the government. And I remember a pastor said to me, well, you need to live out Romans 13. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. And I said, okay. I said, I'll tell you what, you want me to live out Romans 13? He said, yes. I said, okay, go marry 2 men and I'll live out Romans 13. He was like, what? I said, go marry 2 men and then I'll live out Romans 13. I can't do that. I said, according to Romans 13, you have to do that. That'll go against God. What do you think shutting my church down would do? It'll go against God. So you want me to obey Romans 13, but you won't even obey Romans 13. Now, if you're afraid, just say you're afraid. I'm going to do what God says. And he left me alone after that. But my point is, and then I told him, I said, you got to understand, Romans 13 says this. Romans 13 says that government was set up that the righteous doesn't have to fear government, but the wicked should. Now, because we've been voted in the lesser of 2 evils, the righteous is fearing government and the wicked is not.
Yeah, the incestuous relationship between government and religion goes back all the way to Rome with Constantine, who was the last emperor of Rome, potentially one of the first popes of the Catholic Church, and the Council of Nicaea. And the Bible used to have 22 more books in it.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a lot that's been removed from it. And if you read the end of Revelations, normally the outcome of removing those books, you get the plagues of the Bible, per se.
You get the plagues of the Bible, you get your name blocked out of the Lamb Book of Life.
You look at what we're seeing with all these books that have been removed to have a full understanding. The Bible is influenced word of God, right? It was written by people, to many different authors. It's a collection, and it's a very fluid collection. It's amazing that a book runs so fluidly. And the people who put together the book of the Bible, who are these individuals? Sir Francis Bacon,
right?
These individuals who are really helping King James and other people put together the modern day Bible. It's okay to have these questions and have these conversations, because there's this theological debate on, okay, so if the king is representative of God, right? Well, the Pope can't be God, but he sits in place of God, per se, right? Because that's the agreement he made with British. That's why they're called the British. They used to be English, but the words British means basically contract is what it means. There's a contract, and that the Pope is a representative of God on this planet, but he can't be everywhere at once. So, the king is going to be that representation too. But we're all kings in our own home, right? Per se. It's interesting when we look at this ideology in the church's incestuous relationship with government, because it's been there for a long time. The whole idea was to, during the 1700s, there was an organization called the League of the Just, and they infiltrated all the religious organizations and tried to get to the highest points of authority and spread atheistic viewpoints and challenge the faith-based narrative. Some of them being very successful. Well, the League of the Just are the ones that paid Karl Marx to clean up Adam Weishaupt's manifesto, which was the Bavarian Lodge Manifesto, we'll call it that, not to get too conspiratorial, but he didn't originate the Communist Manifesto. They paid for it, and they later on became the U.S. Communist, or the World Communist Party. That's the origins of communism, which is Adam Weishaupt utopianism, abolition of the family, abolition of all religion, abolition of inheritance. What are we seeing? Creation of a one world government. That's all Adam Weishaupt utopianism, who infiltrated lodges, started to help reignite Shrinerism, and came from Swedenborg lodges and within the Masonic lodges and started the Bavarian Illuminati in the 1700s. But the idea is that the perversion of government and the infiltration has been there for a long time. It's a position of power, it's political, and it's forgotten its real purpose, and that's to serve Yeshua. And the rituals most of them are Babylonian and characteristic, between the Dogon, the Atlantean fish god, and the mitre that the Pope wears to, confessional, the modern day NSA, or the prehistoric NSA, to learn everything on people. And we have to understand that the body of Christ is the people.
Right.
That's church. It's interesting because I've had conversations with a lot of cultists. I reach out to a lot of different viewpoints. They don't have their churches in public. They have them in secret because they know the government could shut them down at any time.
Right.
But we have them brandishly out in the open. I think that's the advertisement payments government comes in, and we got to figure out a way to fix that.
Yeah.
So,
And this is why PMAs is so important, because it protects you from all of that. And I'm loving this. Wow, we've been over an hour and 15 minutes already. So interesting. But this is all good. And the thing about it is, I love that the part where you tell people they gotta learn for themselves. They gotta want to know the information. They gotta want to be more self-sufficient. They gotta want to be they gotta want to be able to sustain themselves without the government. And I think that, and I know that with this election, it's going to push people into the center to say, you know what, I can't do this. You know what, I don't have to depend on you. You know what, I'm not going to allow you to turn my heart into hatred to hate somebody else just so you can win my vote.
Well, just look at anti-Semitism. It's like on the left, it's okay to be anti-Semitic in some shape and forms, and I think there's a difference between questioning Zionism,
right,
and Jewish heritage. It's completely different things because, as we know, Zionism is globalization, one world government, everything that we've been talking about that's kind of suspicious. And I think that we should be able to ask questions, but at the same time, we can't hate a nationality based on a few bad people or a race. And I think that right now it's okay. It's funny. Again, cognitive dissonance. It's like as a battalion in Ukraine are Nazis, but all the Republicans here are Nazis, but we want to help Ukraine. And the left is preaching this. It's just constant. It's like it's all tribal. It's tribalism, and we don't really look for ourselves. We got shells on our eyes, and we need to remove these shells. The world is a wild place, Dr. King. We need to implement change, and change starts from within each and every one of us. Whether it is finding Christ and God, whether it's finding peace through meditation. Yes. I think that people in religion has mischaracterized a lot of the things that people do as being evil when it's just inherently calming. It's healthy. It's trying to find yourself. Meditation, clearing your mind, listening for God speak to you. Is that a bad thing? We just call it prayer. But we want to say that, somebody that is searching for God in different meaning is evil. It's, again, tribalism within theology.
Right.
And we got to learn to come together and have communication. I think that's a big thing. And it doesn't matter political parties. At the end of the day, we need to find change and find a way to think for ourselves and learn for ourselves and our children. We need to teach them to be independent and not dependent on the government.
That's absolutely true. So both of our dear friend, Missy, said, this is an excellent interview. Great job, Pastor King and KRISTAN Harris. So Missy is watching.
Yeah, so Missy's a wonderful individual. I've known her for about 25 years. I used to work in entertainment. Used to own Wisconsin's largest independent record label. It's called Snapdragon Records. And so I dealt a lot with celebrities, the music industry, did big tours. And Missy was a big supporter of me. I don't think I could have done it without her. Lifelong friend, like childhood, college friend. And I always appreciate, hey, what's going on, Missy? How you doing? Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, she's
a wonderful woman, and a wonderful woman of God. We were just talking about the dating pool, like this, how terrible it is. And I can confirm that, everyone has two types of phobias. They're scared of commitment and they're scared of abandonment. So where are you sitting if you can't commit and you don't want to be abandoned? And that seems to be like every female and male out there these days. And, just find somebody that takes care of their kids, that has work, that has their things together, that isn't looking at you superficially, but wants the genuine intellectual connection, both spiritually, mentally, and emotionally and romantically. And people just don't want to connect. It's swipe left and right. They're going on the next date. Before that date's over, they found their next Tinder date. They order you out like a piece of pizza off of an app. What kind of world do we live in? I remember back in the day, we'd go to, joke about Blockbuster, but just you meet people in person.
and
You find a connection, right? And sometimes you find somebody you like that you didn't even know that you'd be interested.
I tell people this. Uh, she said it again. She said, "Hey," she said, "Hi, Kristan. I feel the same about you. That's my brother from another mother." Yeah, for me, I found out that I had to connect spiritually first. I had to find when I found Rosie, I had to know that she loved God more than anything. Like I love God more than anything, and I tell her and I tell other kingdom citizens that's in the colony with us that she doesn't have to worry about me cheating on her. I do love her, but she ain't got to worry about me cheating because I don't want to mess up my relationship with God. So,
well, it's self accountability, right?
yes,
And even if you don't believe in God, being a decent, like, is that truthful? Is cheating being truthful?
right,
And if it's not being truthful, it's dishonest. What does it mean to be dishonest or a liar?
right,
Right? And what kind of person, what kind of heart do you have?
right, and
Like, who do you want to be?
and I think that's where a lot of people really don't know who they are. A lot. I always ask people, "Have you met the real you yet?"
Sometimes I don't think I know who the real. You look in the mirror and you're
Right.
like, who is this person?
Right. You be like, "Hold on." Because your inner man always let you know you out of character right now.
Right.
Is this really who you are?
There's things I've said before where I caught myself and I'm like, listen, this isn't a good representation of who I am. So let me roll this back and I apologize.
Right.
I think there's two statements that couples have a problem saying,
Right.
and they're the hardest two statements that anyone seems to have. And I find them very easy to say because when Christ's in your life, it should be something. And that is the first statement is, I was wrong.
Right.
And then I am sorry.
Yes.
And those two statements seem so difficult for people in the dating pool to say, in the relationship pool.
Right.
Why is it that we're so afraid to make mistakes? Because the way you get better at things is to make mistakes.
Right.
But we want to pretend everything's perfect. We want a fake relationship.
Yeah.
We don't want to say I'm sorry or communicate what's bothering us and have difficult conversations again
Right.
because we're worried about offending someone. And that's one thing that we should always work on is in our relationship. How would you feel if your significant other put you down and it made you feel bad all the time and they never knew that they were doing it.
Right.
They didn't mean anything about it, but it's something that you say that irks you, and then all you had to do is communicate, and they could fix the problem.
That bothers me.
That bothers. I love that. Like women don't understand. They got that blossom gene where they can communicate with the man and say, "You're my Prince Charming. I hear that garbage truck coming. Where's that sexy man bringing out that garbage?"
Right.
Well, you get out there, you take that garbage, you're running out with it because your wife or girlfriend treats you and communicates in a way that's positively reinforcement. Husband, man, you are the best man I can ask. I could ever ask for. But why is it that you do this? It feels like it deflates me from time to time. And I know you don't mean to, but can we fix this? Everything goes to trash, calling names, victim blaming, stonewalling, gaslighting. It's so much work. Why is it so hard to just say I was wrong and I'm sorry?
Well,
It's just, and that's the same thing in politics.
It is.
It's just this because they're in a relationship with these parties and they don't even know it.
Right.
Right? They're dating.
And
their
they don't
boyfriend is
wanna-
the Republican Party or the girlfriend's the Democrat Party or whatever.
Right. And they don't want to tell them, what you're doing is wrong because they know it's going to come an argument. They know
Right.
They know it's going to be like, okay, now you sleep on the couch.
It's the guilt.
Yeah.
It's for you to say, I made a mistake, I was wrong, and I got to fix this.
Yes.
What's wrong with it? Don't you want to fix the problem?
You know what?
Or do you want to just marinate in it?
You know what I tell godly men? I tell them, I say, listen. I said, I tell them, I said, I need to ask you a question first. I said, the question is, are you the thermostat or the thermometer in your relationship?
Oh, right.
Because if you're the thermometer, you're in the wrong spot. You're supposed to be the thermostat. If there's love in your relationship,
Set the temperature.
because you said it. If there's peace, because you said it. I know that if me and Rosie don't agree on something and we going back and forth, I'll say, okay, I digress. And then that gives me a chance to back away, rethink it, and then come back. Okay, let's have this conversation. Now that we're having a conversation, I'm going to say, well, this is how I see it.
Right.
And this is how you see it.
Well, you got to see it from other people's perspective, but we don't. We only want to be in a silo. We have to.
You know, my way is right.
It's a scorecard. It's interesting because at the end of the day, my grandfather, he was a German preacher in Wisconsin, Reinhold Schultz, and he'd have a saying, and it involved a cuss word, and I rarely, in German they have a couple words like Schweinhund, pig dog, and some other things, but he would say, you take a pig, this translation, and you throw it on a pile of shit, and it jumps off. Oh, it's ugly, it's dirty. But you leave it there for a little while, and it's rolling around in it, because after a while, shit's not so bad. And so, you're still rolling around in it, but
Right.
you don't want to fix the problem.
Right.
And there's a lot of truth to that.
Yes.
Because we all seem to be that pig these days, and we've been
just
thrown
roll.
we've been thrown to the pile, and it was bad at first, but if you're a conservative, you had Trump, you're like, we got a solution. Oh, now we're rolling around in the shit.
Right.
And you voted for Biden. Oh, the change. Oh, then you're rolling around in the shit.
Right.
And the wonderful thing about the floods of God and the water of God and the rain of God, it cleans us all.
Yes, it does.
We're all washed by the water.
Yes.
And if you believe or not, I encourage you to find faith in something, because you'll fall for, if you don't believe in anything, you'll fall for anything.
Oh, yes.
So
we got a couple of minutes, so I'm going to turn you over and share your final thoughts with the people.
Well, first of all, if you guys want to find out more about me, you can find me, KRISTAN T. Harris, on Twitter, x.com, Facebook. The Rundown Live is my program. You can find that on KGRA, broadcast nightly from midnight till 2 in the morning. And if you guys are interested in getting a hold of me, you can. KRISTAN at therundownlive.com. My thoughts are, we got to learn to think for ourselves. We have to identify the programming that's taking place, not just of us, but our youth through education, and the investment that goes into subliminally controlling us as people, because they spend an ungodly amount of money learning how to control the population, whether it's through television, right? Why do they call it TV programs, Dr. King? Who are they programming?
They programming everybody to sit there and watch
radio programs.
Yes.
It's all there for programming. It's all for control.
Yes.
So learn to think from yourself. Next time you get hungry and you see double arches, don't get McDonald's. Think about what you can get for what would you rather have, rotisserie chicken, or would you rather have some fries and a burger? The odds are you'd rather have that rotisserie chicken.
Right.
Would you rather have that nice good steak, or would you rather have that sloppy $2 burger that's gonna make you feel like trash? You'd probably rather have the steak. And they cost the same, except one takes a little effort. We're so lazy.
Right.
We don't even want to cook our own food. But I bet you there's a lot of people right now that are wishing that they're going to be able to cook their food, because, the SNAP situation is going on. I don't even, my thought process is the government tries to figure something out before SNAP becomes an issue. Either that, or the left is going to use the protests to destabilize America, which is been the goal all along by the far left, is to destabilize America and break us down into 5 different countries. In this way, slowly, progressively take over our nation.
Yes.
Multinational corporates, money, greed, and power. You always follow the money, you follow the power. Those are the people in charge.
Yeah.
Dr. King, I appreciate the opportunity to join your program, and I look forward to your success, and I hope that you give them hell there in Madison.
Oh, definitely that. I tell people all the time, if you never watched the movie Lean on Me, go watch it. Because once I become governor, I'm gonna be Joe Clark. We're gonna get some stuff done.
Right.
We're gonna switch that 80% administrative and then 20% going to the people. We're gonna reverse that, because in government you got 3 agencies doing the same job. That don't make sense.
Well, not only that, government is the largest property owner in America. They don't have any right to own any property.
Exactly.
And like half the United States is government property. And I'm not saying we should be good to our natural resources. I'm just saying government should be in charge. They shouldn't be in control. That they should be the number one in property owning across America. And they have all these infrastructures and jobs. And all it does is create dependency on government. So,
Yes.
So the way I look at it, you got a graph, right? Less government means more freedom.
More freedom.
More government means more slavery. So the question is
You
which
want
one
to be free? You want to be a slave?
No,
That's it right
so
there.
either do you want to be in charge of your own life, or do you want to let government run your life for you? And government doesn't handle or do anything right. You see right now by them being able to starve the public that socialism and communism could never work. Not in the purest form and ideology. Yes, it could work, but the problem is with the imperfection of man, greed, and power. It will only be used to consolidate wealth and power, and the revolution never comes.
Exactly. So we thank you guys for tuning in, joining us. Until next week, when Kingdom Citizen of Wisconsin return, hopefully I get a pastor up here that we can have these kind of conversations, because if we do an exodus from both parties, we can change our state, we can change our nation. This is Dr. David D. King, along with KRISTAN T. Harris. We love you guys. Until next week. God bless.